When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
supposed to ride, standing in the station, ready to step inside. All you can see, something that you do, was red as the future was waiting for you. Train rolls in the station, you cannot make a move. Something inside you gives you heat, and then you know it's true. Is the fog lifting, or is it in your mind? You stand frozen as time unwinds. And moan, you can't reach your hand up and stop standing alone. Let them take your hand as you lift your face. Rise and take your place.
Salem. So we're live on OpsLens. Here we go. Hey, folks, we are. Yep. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. So, Rob, you start talking to them. I'm going to try to call into the studio.
Okay. Well, let's talk about something, I guess.
We'll see how good Rob is on his toes.
We can talk about gunpowder. I just got a big load of it today.
Well, there you go. Good.
A friend of mine was going to auction and was able to get like 10 pounds of it for me. And it's like Christmas all over again.
Well, you're talking to them, not talking to me, because I'm talking on the phone.
You ain't talking to nobody either.
I know, it's ringing.
So, anyhow, I got quite a bit of a hard-to-get actual gunpowder at a really reasonable rate today, so I'm going to enjoy all that.
This is when things go south. So we've got a whole series of articles and stories to share with you guys, and if we have to, we'll do an OpsLens show for the period of time. And I don't know what's going to happen with Salem because we're supposed to be live on a nationally syndicated radio show,
right.
And sometimes things go south. So it does not look like there is anyone answering the switchboard at Salem studio at the same time. So
well, it sounds like sometime now. Sometimes goes south. It sounds like sometime.
Yeah, sometime now is the sometime. There is no doubt about it. Yeah, well, there's just nothing. Okay. Well, we're going to run with the show, and we'll just go from there, see if somebody finally tunes in. But,
Ohio just got done signing and passing their constitutional carry, so everybody that lives in Ohio that doesn't have a gun better go buy one because there's going to be a run on them.
There is all of that. So, yeah. Okay.
Well, and there's other states that are right behind them, so if you live in those other states that are really thinking about it, you might, if you don't have a gun, you might want to go get one now before the
Well, I think between the war in Ukraine, the failure to, well, not failure, the government saying that you cannot send any more money to Russia, so ergo buy bullets from Russia, and since 40% of all ammunition was imported from Russia, so now our ammo is cut by 40%. Constitutional carries happening in more states. People are getting more concerned.
Everybody should just buy a black powder gun because they can make their own bullets.
All of that plus so much more. So
you can make bullets out of they use cigarette paper. They glue them to the bullet and then they fill it with gunpowder and then twist it all up and then just shove the whole thing in. So it makes it like a speed loader for your muzzle loader.
Well, there you go. You'll have to teach more and more classes so that they get a.
They look like little paper worms that you're shoving in your gun, but they tend to work.
Folks, it was going to be great. We had lined up Ohio Supreme Court Justice Pat DeWine as our guest. So right now I'm trying not to stand up of the Supreme Court Justice, but I can't interview him any other way. So I'm trying to tell him that while we're trying to be live. So why don't you pick a story here? Let's talk about that.
Alrighty. So anyhow, the TSA is reporting that they have a record number of gun seizures in 2021 because more and more people apparently decided they're taking it with them.
Right.
I've seen also there was another article where one of the California lawmakers was trying to go somewhere and airport security found his loaded gun in his bag.
Well, so he's one of the 21, he's one of the.
He's actually running for sheriff there, so it's kind of he should know the law better than most.
Well, and more than that, he is running as sheriff on an anti-gun platform. No guns for thee, but obviously some for me when I fly on an airplane where I'm not allowed to have one in the first place. But we'll just make all that when you connect all the dots together, right?
Well, it goes to show you that some of the laws that they have are really not all that good of law. I mean, and so nobody. I mean, they'll have a law, but they don't follow those laws.
Well, it doesn't apply to them. That's
right. Well, that's
all that is.
It's only against the law until you're caught. Once you're caught.
No. It's always against the law. You're just not a felon until you're caught.
But I mean, that's the way everybody sees it. So why do we have all these laws if everyone sees it the same way?
As it's a suggestion.
It's a feel-good deal. Somebody passed thinking that this is going to help, but in reality, the masses are against it 100%, right? I mean, if you were getting on the airplane and you're worried about somebody taking over the airplane, if they give you a gun when you got on, so everybody in there had one, and then when you got back off, you put it back in a box so that the next one...
You turned it back in. The guns just stayed with the seats, right? Just right there. It's got a little holster right there. You're all good. You can have some fighting sticks. You can have them.
Right next, you got your pistol and your Dr. Pepper and a donut or a bag of peanuts or something.
I know. All they give you is dry, old pretzels. Not even a donut. Not even something tasty. Dry, desiccant in knotted up food form.
It's kind of set up so that you don't look forward to extras or more. You know
well, there is that. But let's go back to this TSA article. The TSA reported that they had picked up, caught, found, taken 5,972 firearms.
So almost 6,000. I could see, I mean, now and then there's somebody who's like, yeah, that was my backup gun and I left it in my suitcase. Or that was my briefcase that I was doing something with. I see that, but 6,000?
Well, the worst part is I'm sure that they don't have any way of dealing with them in a normal money-making way, so they just crush them or grind them or burn them or something.
Okay, well, I guess we're back to being live on Salem, so we are good to go. So, Salem, can you hear me? Okay, I don't know, but my producer of the video says that we're live on Salem at the same time we are not. So let me see if I can turn our guest back on for the thing. So you run. So folks, if you're just tuning in from the Salem thing, we ran into a problem, and so we weren't sure that we were live. I had Pat DeWine, Ohio Supreme Court Justice, lined up to be a guest, and so I just called him off. I'm going to try to call him back on, and so here we go. We are back on. Right? I cannot talk and text. I don't know how people talk or text and drive because I can't talk and text.
Anyhow, so we were talking about the TSA getting these record numbers of guns, and then as part of that, they don't have any, they destroy the guns at the end of the thing. So they got 5,972 guns. Instead of cleaning them up and selling them on an auction setting or something back to dealers or whatever, and then using that money to finance some of their
right. But no, they
stuff,
can't do that.
They destroy it. Kansas here is passing.
Don't head off yet because you're not done with that story. The other part that they do is when they take all the other stuff, when they take all the things that are bullet shaped or magazines or accessories or accoutrement, they throw those in a bucket. And then if you work at the airport, you could just have it. So if, you know your grandmother's knitting needles, the 5,000 pairs of fingernail clippers, all of that stuff is just available to the employees for the taking. So
it's almost enough to make you want to get a job there, huh?
No. No.
If you were getting free magazines, maybe.
No, because you know what would happen is now I have a magazine for a gun I don't have. Darn it! Now I got to buy the gun.
Well, I didn't know there was such a thing as a gun you didn't have. You just.
I'm not that much of a super user. I'm an overachiever user, but I'm not a super user. There's plenty of guns that I do not have, and plenty of guns that I do not want, or I haven't thought about wanting. Maybe that's more the case.
Yeah, the thing is, if you had a magazine though, that would maybe put you over the edge to where you.
That's what I'm afraid of. Is it would just kick me into.
Did I give you that 60%? I'm 60% in. I gotta buy.
It would kick me into the super shopping mode. That would be it. That's why there was so many different places that you could work that would have an employee discount, and I'm like, I can't work here because it's just.
End of the week, they just give you a voucher says how much stuff they give you.
Right. I feel like I live at the company store, and then the next thing I know, I can't live indoors or anything because I can't actually pay my bills. But I have a lot of whatever it is that I'm supporting the company with. Rah rah rah.
I'm a hoarder. My name is Amanda.
My name is Amanda. I think I need one of those. Wait, it's sort of like Steve Martin with the jerk. You know, I just need the thermos and this bathrobe and maybe this chair.
And this,
Right?
this ladder.
What can I do with that? If any of you guys follow our Facebook posts or Facebook pages, you'll get a general gist. You really will. So there is an opportunity if you want to follow us that our Facebook is just out for the public.
Mine is on most of the time, but once in a while I'm in Facebook jail. So
Well, because justifiably so. We'll just say that he's a Facebook overachiever, if you will. So, folks, we're going to head for a commercial break, and hopefully when we come back, everything will be all running nice and smooth and all good, and we'll go just like acting like we're professionals as opposed to this hot mess that we put on this first little section. Be right back.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit ProjectChildSafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, so we are back, and we are we're at the history section. So surprise me.
Why don't we talk about pistol caliber carbines? How's that?
Okay, so they call them PCCs when they're doing it in gun or USPSA or something.
And when people were heading west in the American frontier, they called them a Winchester 73.
Okay. So Winchester 73 was the first name it has. Now it's a PCC.
Right. You think about it, the Henry and the 73 Winchester were all pistol caliber guns until, and then later in 76, they finally came out with an actual rifle powered repeater. So if you were needing a full powered gun, you were still using single shots up until 1876.
Okay.
And But the 73 Winchester made it, I guess they call it the gun that won the West, because everybody had one or wanted one, and they made that gun clear up until 1932, so it was pretty popular. And then in 1892, they made a more robust model.
Okay.
So from that 92 till 1932, they were actually running two different models of this Winchester lever action in the same calibers, basically 3840. 4440.
So you could buy either one of those, and was one infinitely more popular than the other? Or?
Well, the 73 sold a lot more, but it sold for a lot longer. But the 92 was much more robust in its manufacture. I mean, a lot of people at the time when the 57 Magnum came out, and that they would just take the barrels off and change them and make them into Magnums right away.
Okay.
Where the 73, the action couldn't take that kind of a beating.
Okay.
So, but yeah, the guns were popular. They give you like 16 shots as fast as you could work the lever. If you watch some of the cowboy action shooting videos on TV, on the internet, you'll see that some of those guys are pretty darn fast at getting rid of their bullets.
So in the lever actions, where were the bullets kept? Is it
up in a tube underneath the barrel?
So like a 22, it's kept in that same tube for even.
But it's kind of funny. They put they have a tube in there, and then they have a lifter. They call it, and the lifter moves down, and the bullet moves out of the magazine into it when the bolt is closed. And then when the bolt comes back, it throws the empty out as the lifter comes up and hits it and pushes the empty out the top, and then it presents the new one. Bolt shoves it in, and then it drops back down in place to pick up the next bullet. So that as long as the bullets are the same length as the lifter, everything works fine. If they're shorter or longer, now you start running into
it gets jammed and it can't.
It was such a good design that actually the Swiss bought 200 guns to copy how they worked, and then they made a bolt action using the same lifter type situation in their gun, because it worked so smoothly and functional. But the 73 has a toggle action, they call it, and so it's like two arms that flex to pull the bolt back, and then when the arms are extended so that it's like your arm straight out. So it's very solid. It's very solid. And then when you pull the lever down, it bends at the elbow basically and pulls the bolt back. The 92 actually it has two big locking lugs that slide up to lock the bolt and the frame together as one massive piece. So the only thing you have is just a couple inches of bolt that could possibly move because the frame's holding everything together instead of two little spindly arms. Okay.
So it's got beefy arms and not spindly little chicken arms. Okay.
So John Wayne used 92s in most of his movies, the ones that he has with the big loop that everybody likes where he spins them and all that stuff. Those were custom-built 92s for him so he could spin them and look cool doing the things.
Well, he could look cool doing anything, so it doesn't matter.
It was funny because Winchester made what they called trapper models, and they had like 12-inch barrels, I think 10, 12, 14-inch barrels. When the 1930s NFA Act of 1934 comes through. It made those short-barreled rifles, and so it made them illegal.
Okay.
They were very popular south of the border. A lot of times when you find them, they look like they've been buried for the last 100 years instead of being used.
Okay.
So
when somebody took something and then they rechambered it, recalibrated it, as you were saying earlier, is that decreasing the value of it, or if it was done 100 years ago, it doesn't matter? Or
it decreases the collector value, but it increases the user value. So it's the kind of thing, if before you could actually buy a rifle like that, they were making them themselves. So if you wanted one, it was cheaper for you to buy theirs than it was to make it for yourself usually.
Okay.
And but it shows the marketplace that there's actually a market for that when somebody sets up a sideline of converting old guns into the new.
Right, and then the gun company follows suit, so they don't. Somebody
it was
else is doing their R&D for them.
In that, like 1972, I had sit down and wrote a letter to a bunch of different gun companies at the time.
So I want you guys to know, 1972, he was a kid, 12. 10, 12,
so,
right?
Well, I used to send letters off all the time, and they would send me all kinds of free stuff. I'd get, like, calendars and different...
and they'd pat him on his little head and
brassards
say, hey, kid.
And key rings and all kinds of stuff. Most of them told me, that, go away, kid, you're bothering me. But a couple of years later, then they all built the same gun I told them that they should be making at the time, and so...
you were infinitely vindicated, even though they didn't say, hey, this kid planted the seed, but you felt very vindicated by
I
that.
had told them in 1972 that a lever action 45 Colt caliber rifle would be a big seller, and by 1990, all of them were making one of them.
Okay, there you go. You were psychic, something like that. Man, oh man, oh man. Yeah, it's always interesting to grow up with Carmack the Wizard.
It's funny though. I wrote a letter one time to Savage, and the guy who owns Savage, and I cannot remember his name now. I met him at one of the NRA shows, and when I introduced myself, he actually remembered the letter. We had a conversation and stuff. It was
he remembered getting this letter from this 10-year-old kid. Isn't that the funniest thing? So it actually did get clear to the top of, maybe it's because it took 10 of them to read your handwriting.
Maybe, but
I'm just going to put that out there, guys. If you've ever seen anything that Rob's written.
That was the only thing I remember was that he was the only one who actually could quote some of the stuff that I had wrote in the letter that he had seen the letter.
That he'd seen the letter. That is hysterical. In the fact that, do you think he's still alive?
I would imagine. I don't know.
Maybe
he's probably retired by now, though.
You're gonna have to look him up. You're gonna have to know. Now inquiring minds want to know. Hey, when we come back, we're going to have Ohio Supreme Court Justice Pat DeWine on. Yeah, Supreme Court Justice from Ohio, Pat DeWine. He's going to be on. We'll be right back.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Seffacool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, krmaradio.com.
Okay, so we are back, and this is our guest segment, and with us today we have Ohio Supreme Court Justice Pat DeWine. Hey, Pat, thank you very much for joining us on Eye on the Target Radio.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Oh, it is so great. When I told people that I was going to have a Supreme Court justice from Ohio on the show, they were like, "You're kidding me, right?" And I was like, "No, they actually do talk to people." So as you know, Rob and I do not primarily, it is a Second Amendment show talking about guns and all things like that. And I knew that you and I had a conversation recently while we were up in Cleveland about some of the impact of crime and sentencing and things like that. And so I would love for you to kind of share with folks some of the stuff that's happening and why it is so critical that people know who their lawyers are and know who their judges are and know who their Supreme Court justices are, because they are elected officials. It's not like the Supreme Court of the United States where you're appointed and there forever. Here, people need to know who you are and what you stand for you to be able to stand for us.
That's right. And we are, unlike federal judges, we're elected by the people, and we're accountable to you. So if you don't like us, you can throw us out of office every 6 years.
Okay, so it is.
The model our framers intended.
It's a 6-year cycle, and how many Supreme Court justices are in the state of Ohio? And then let's start talking about just in generality, some of the changes that you've seen while you've been as a Supreme Court justice.
Sure. There's 7 justices on the Ohio Supreme Court. We're elected every 6 years, so every 2 years, two justices will run, and then on the 6th year, the Chief Justice will also run.
Okay.
So this year we have 3 seats up. I've been on the court since 2016. And I do have to tell you, one of the things that's happened is that the court has become much less conservative over the past few election cycles. So today we have 3 people I would consider constitutional conservatives on the court, and then 4 who are much more activist, I guess I would say.
Okay. So what happens to a state when their Supreme Court is more activist than constitutionalist?
Well, you're going to see it reflected in the decisions that come down from the court. You're much less likely to have judges who apply the original meaning of the Constitution, and instead you're going to have justices who make decisions based upon their own policy preferences.
Okay, so I know that you and I were talking about crime and punishment and sentencing and the modification. I don't know if it's considered a modification, a ruling, a decision that came from the court just recently on crimes. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think you were talking about our decision in the DuBose case, which was a case that was decided early January and has really gotten a lot of attention from prosecutors, judges, people involved in law enforcement. And this was a case about the rules that apply for setting bail. And what the court ruled was that going forward, judges are not allowed to consider public safety when they consider the amount of a criminal's bail or accused criminal's bail. So the only thing judges are allowed to consider, according to the majority on the court, are what someone can afford to pay and what their risk is to flee. Now,
so you can't consider public safety. I want to repeat that. I mean, because we're in a spot where people are responsible for their own personal safety, and there's so much pushback on that. But if judges can't consider public safety,
well, you get like that guy at the Christmas parade who got out of jail for $1,000 and then ran down all the people at the Christmas parade. Right?
That's right. I mean, there's been this movement for bail reform across the country, and some of it's reasonable. We don't want to have people who are nonviolent just sitting in jail when they could be out doing something productive. But there are people who need to have a bail set that's commensurate with their risk to the community. And so in this DuBose case, it was 4-3. There were 3 dissenters, myself and Justice Kennedy and Justice Fisher. And I think all 3 of us thought this was completely wrong based on not just public policy, but more importantly, what the rule actually said and what the Ohio Constitution says.
So if it was a 4-3 vote, decision, whatever the legal terms are, but it was a 4-3 against the people that I consider constitutionalists. What's the chances, or what's the potential, or how does that get back in front of you at a time in which we have more constitutionalists on the court? How does it ever get to be reversed or revoked, or is this the direction that we're going and that we're destined to go for a long, long time?
Well, ultimately, cases come back to the court, and it's up to the court to decide whether they want to adhere to prior rulings or whether they think that those rulings were so wrong that they shouldn't be adhered to. It shouldn't be given what we call stare decisis effect. So, these cases will continue to come up on the court, and I can't say what the court would do in the future, but I think that if you had a different majority in the court, they may well look at this issue differently.
Okay. Yeah, there would be a different consideration at least at that point. So how does one, because our show is national, so we're everywhere, and so some of our listeners are Ohio-based and some are not. How do you recommend that our listeners do research to find out who's running for the Supreme Court in their state and how they are constitutionalists or not? Because frankly, my engineering degree did not prepare me at all to be able to answer these do this query and look for this. I mean, it's so far out of my wheelhouse, I can't even imagine where we all are.
What I would suggest is try to look at how judges describe their political philosophy. We in Ohio we have a judicial votes count website where we ask judges to answer some questions about their background and philosophy. Other states may have similar things, but everyone has to decide for themselves what kind of judge they would like. But for me, I think that we need judges who are constitutional conservatives, judges who say they will apply the laws written, people not willing to legislate from the bench, but to apply the plain terms of what's in front of them.
Okay, because there's so many people who are now trying to say that the Constitution is a living document and that we battle the Second Amendment battle all the time. What do you say to people who say that the Constitution is a living document and needs to be revised and revoked and repaired, if you will?
To me, that is just, to put it mildly, kind of hogwash. I mean, I think that our framers, when they enacted the Constitution, they understood that it meant certain things. And, there's a process to amend the Constitution that goes to the people, and people can pass a new constitutional amendment. But short of that, we should be applying the original understanding of what the Constitution was intended to mean. And when you say you believe in a living Constitution, what you're really saying is, I know what I want the law to be, and I'm going to impose my will. I mean, there's no guardrails to someone who's a living constitutionalist. It's simply how you feel.
I concur with that. I mean, because that's the fear, is that all of a sudden it becomes this management by feeling for the United States. If it feels good, do it. If it feels wrong, then we need to make it illegal, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I mean, judges are not supposed to be legislatures. We're not supposed to make the law. I mean, that's up to the people. That's up to the elected representatives. I mean, so our job is to apply the law as it is. If people want to change the law, then there's processes in places to enact laws and to amend the Constitution. But judges shouldn't be doing that.
Well, I have to say that, one of the things is that most of us don't know too many judges unless we're in front of them, which means that in a lot of cases, criminals know the judges way more than the law and order rigid, I'm never going to get in trouble kind of folks, and we may see a judge in passing on the street, but we may not even know they're a judge. So Pat, will you stay on for the next section? Because I want to get some more feelings from you about how do we connect with judges, and how do we get to know judges and that type of thing. We'll be right back.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more. This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Sefcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
We are back, and with us we have Ohio Supreme Court Justice Pat DeWine. And Pat is on the ballot in Ohio running for a seat on the Ohio Supreme Court to maintain his seat on the Ohio Supreme Court, and to do so to maintain having conservative constitutionalists, true constitutionalists on the court. So a while ago, Pat, we had a situation where President Trump appointed Supreme Court justices to the United States Supreme Court. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, he picked constitutionalists, and the three that he put on they're not Republicans. They follow the Constitution, and it was funny because the first couple of things that they did, I think the first four, they actually sided with the Democratic side of the argument, And a lot of my friends were going crazy about this. I'm like, well, Trump didn't give you a conservative Republican. He gave you someone who's going to follow what the Constitution is telling them.
Whether it's Republican or Democrat, it is
Right.
it's the Constitution that is key and critical.
Right.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Even I have a lot of people who are groups who are friends who've been supportive, but I don't necessarily rule their way every time. I mean, I have to make my decisions based on what the Constitution says, what's the original meaning of that, and I think that people by and large respect that.
Okay, yeah, and I think they do too. So when you go to make a decision, share with us kind of the structure of how it works. You've got clerks and help, and how do you do all of this? Because it would seem to me that the research would just be so daunting.
Yeah, but I fortunately I have 3 law clerks who work for me, and I pick new people every year as law clerks. So I'm getting young people right out of law school or a few years out of law school, not always directly out. But I try to get smart young people who help. But ultimately the decisions are mine, and I spend most of my days actually reading and writing. You think of a judge, you probably have the image of someone sitting on a bench wearing a robe, and I do that some days. But actually most days I'm sitting at a desk somewhere, either reading for cases that are coming up or writing opinions on cases we've already decided. So it's a very, being on the Supreme Court, different than like a trial judge. It's a much more kind of quiet, reading, writing kind of job.
So much more contemplative as opposed to action-oriented.
Yeah, I started out as a common police court judge, a trial judge, and that was great fun because there was always something happening in front of you every day. You were dealing with trials, and you never knew what was going to happen. And I love what I do now, but it's very different than that because mostly what you're doing is reading and thinking about legal issues, and then trying to write opinions that explain to people what you decided and why you decided it. When I write an opinion, I want to write something that's not just for lawyers, but I want an average person to be able to pick that up and understand it.
Okay.
So when we talked about this DuBose decision earlier, one thing I didn't mention is that if people are interested in it, you can go to my website and you can read the majority opinion, and you can read my dissent. And I think it's laid out there in pretty plain English, and you don't have to be a lawyer to understand it.
Okay, so what's the website that they could go and read that?
Just PatDeWine.com. If you go to those representative opinions, DuBose is the one about bond I was talking about earlier today. Earlier.
So DuBose. So how much do you consider previous case law versus the Constitution, versus right and wrong? How do you put all that together?
Sure. As judges, we have a principle of stare decisis, so we try not to change precedent because we want certainty and predictability in the law. We don't want the law to change every time someone comes to court. Mm-hmm. But I kind of follow the Clarence Thomas philosophy, which is at the end of the day, we take an oath not to stare decisis, but we take an oath to the Constitution. And so if you have to choose between one or the other, if you think previous cases were generally wrongly decided and don't follow the Constitution, the oath we took is to follow the Constitution.
Okay, well that makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot of talk right now about Second Amendment cases being revoked and that type of stuff. So in generalities, how would one go about trying to get like the 1934 gun control, the NFA? How would you try to get that repealed or revoked? How would you advise if you were not on the court? How would you advise someone to kind of start or go down that path to try to make that happen?
Sure. Well, I can't advise anyone about challenging a specific law, but generally the way our process works is if there's a law that someone thinks is unconstitutional, there has to be a case where the law is enforced, and then you can raise that claim in the trial court. and then you can appeal to the Court of Appeals, and then ultimately
okay, there you go. So first thing I'd have to do is get Rob arrested, and then we could use that as the case, right?
I think that's right. I mean, not necessarily, probably.
Okay, I'm sorry.
There may be other ways, but for example, I think the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association case is before the U.S. Supreme Court right now, and I think that what they did to challenge that was they found some plaintiffs who I think in that case they filed a suit saying that they wanted to be able to well, actually in that case I think what happened was they found some people who were denied a permit to get a firearm, and then they sued saying that they were entitled to a permit, and so once they lost in state court, they appealed to the Court of Appeals, and then ultimately the U.S. Supreme Court took the case. So you have to start with an individual case. You can't generally in our system just say, "Hey, Supreme Court, this law is unconstitutional, strike it down." You have to have an individual case and then work your way up.
Okay, so and even if you have a case where you think that it was decided wrongly based on modern standards and definitions with something, you still have to start with Rob being arrested. Well, he's not volunteering, but anyhow, everybody gets the gist of where I'm at with that.
It could be, and if it was a criminal case, that might be the only way to challenge a criminal law. There are some other opportunities to file lawsuits, in some cases saying that this law is unconstitutionally vague, or for some reason it curtails my rights. I'm afraid I have a legitimate threat of being enforced. You can ask for a declaratory judgment and then take it up that way. Okay.
So if people want to know more about you and about the decisions that you've made and the dissents that you filed, they can just go to your website, patdewine.com?
Yes. So I have some representative decisions there. I have a decision in that case. It's not easy for people, but one of the great things about as judges is we put all of our stuff in writing, so it's all out there. You can if you're willing to do enough research, you can find out how we decide pretty much anything.
Right, and I think that it is so critical right now in the United States that people understand who their lawmakers are, who the decision makers are. I mean, we've been on this radio show, been talking pretty hard about the fact that the ATF gets to make decisions and then they get to revise those decisions whenever they want to without passing a law. So it is critical to us, to Second Amendment folks, that we know that the judges that are representing us are constitutionalists, because that is, in the end, where it all matters. So, Justice Pat DeWine, thank you very much for coming on Eye on the Target Radio. I really appreciate the fact that you took a Sunday evening to join us to talk about a little bit about how it all works and the Ohio Supreme Court. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. It was fun. Glad to do it.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
supposed to ride. Standing in the station, ready to step inside. All you can see, something that you do, was red as the future was late ever yellow. Train rolls in the station, you cannot make a move. Something inside you gives you heat, and then you know it's true. Is the fog lifting, or is it in your mind? You stand frozen as time unwinds. You can weep and moan, or you can reach your hand up and stop standing alone. Let them take your hand as you lift your face. Rise and take your place.
Shooter standby.
You hit the radio bullseye. And the home for everything Second Amendment, concealed carry, the latest gear, reciprocity, legislation, the right to self-protection, and it shall not be infringed. This is Eye on the Target Radio with your hosts, Rob and Amanda.
Okay, folks, we're back. And Rob has so many questions that he couldn't get answered from a Supreme Court justice about things. So let's start a conversation, and then you guys, if you want to, who are joining us via the social media accounts and want to ask questions, we'll add that into the conversation. But really, part of what we were talking to Justice Pat DeWine about was, previous case law versus constitutional law, right versus wrong. Miller versus the U.S. is one of those cases, in your opinion.
Well, 1939, Miller versus the U.S. Miller was a criminal. He had a sawed-off shotgun. He said that the sawed-off shotgun was a usable thing and wasn't an issue. With 1934 Gun Control Act said differently. The case was decided by saying that since the military did not use sawed-off shotguns, that there was no actual use for
it.
And so Miller was wrong, and he went to jail for it. But by today's standards, all of the military uses 14-inch barrel shotguns, and so would Miller have been decided differently today? Was that military use actually a good
a good litmus test, on that. So, I mean, I don't know. I think that would be an interesting thing. But since somebody has to go to jail for it to get to there,
but the thing is, they still use Miller as an opinion piece in their previous case law. So how does that, compare with the fact that in modern day, everybody has a 12 or 14-inch Benelli or a Remington in their car.
But they don't. So they use Miller, but Miller wasn't the reason that they pulled out sporting use or in common use, or was that really the origination of that?
That's coming later. This, and actually, I believe there's nothing in actual writing about in sporting use or in common use in the '68 Gun Control Act. But this is some of the wordage they're using for like import law, different things like this, and so
somehow the common fallacy is sort of like Casablanca. You played it for her, so play it for me. Play it again, Sam. He never said play it again, Sam. Right?
Right, but it's the kind of thing that if they're bringing in the shotgun from Turkey or from Russia or from whatever, they say, well, does it have a sporting use? And then that really has no bearing on whether it's allowed in or not.
It shouldn't have any bearing, and the law doesn't say it has bearing. Yet that's what they're using, and then we're seeing it a lot in the magazine bans and the different things on the state level about everything is in common use. So you look at 15 million AR-15s and how many gazillion 30-round magazines. They're pretty much in common use, right? If 5% of the U.S. population has one, it's pretty common.
And they're all sitting on a reusable shopping bag full of magazines so that they're ready to go.
Just maybe we have 1 or 2 or 10 of those. You know how that is,
that's
right?
the thing is, there's a lot of things, and it makes you wonder. And there's other questions, like I don't know if any of you guys have ever tried to build like an AR kit or an AK kit or any of this stuff. When you buy one of these parts kits, they say that they have to have a certain amount of U.S.-made parts in them.
Right, and where did that come from?
Well, it's in this U.S. What is it? The code 9. I think it's 922, Section 18, or something like that.
Okay.
Anyhow, it's the parts that they sell you do not say made in USA. They don't have company names on it. They're just in a big bin. So when you go to the gun show to buy these parts, you have to take it for the guy's word for it that they're U.S.-made parts. When the ATF comes to your house and knocks on the door, they have to take your word that they're U.S.-made parts.
They have to take your word that guy said that
Right, because
we're playing
none
the
of this
whisper
stuff
game.
is marked, so it's like it's a law that cannot be 100% nailed
It
down.
can't be justified enforced, but it can be. So will it be that you are innocent until proven guilty,
no, I
or
don't believe that
guilty until
happens
proven innocent?
I don't believe innocent until proven guilty
happens
has
with the
been
ATF?
a thing since back in the 50s sometime.
Okay. A little bit of all that.
I mean,
Potentially.
look at Facebook. You're guilty until proven innocent.
I'm not. I'm not in Facebook jail. You, on the other hand, are in Facebook jail.
No, but
as a repeat offender, there, Mr.
everything
Sir.
is tried in the public opinion, depending on how they phrase it. All of a sudden, this guy's the bad guy, and he may have nothing to do with it. And
He may. That's what I'm innocent, Ma. I'm innocent. I swear, I'm innocent.
He was driving the Uber that got the guy to where he was going, or something.
Right. Exactly. So, let's move on to a whole other topic, because that one's just going to get us into a wormhole that we're never ever going to get out of. So there is a Cam Edwards article in Bearing Arms that says, "Are the Ukraine's armed citizens making a difference?"
Yeah, they're making a difference. Even if none of them ever load their rifle or pull the trigger, they're making a difference due to the fact that the Russians know they're out there. So it's it's kind of like back in World War II, we had fields full of inflatable tanks and aircraft and that.
Uh-huh.
So when they were flying over, they seen all these. They couldn't tell if they were real or not.
A good one, a real one versus a pretend
Right.
one.
So you don't know if you're seeing grandma and the muzzle of her rifle hanging over the edge of the wall, or you're seeing a real soldier, and you don't want to take a chance on sticking your head up.
The thing that stuck to me was in this Cam Edwards article that that there is a guy named Dennis who is he's standing in line with a whole group of other people to get a Kalashnikov rifle, so that he had it. I'm sorry, this Gregory, and he works as a male strip dancer, and but now he's standing in line to get his rifle. Everybody is arming themselves. We'll just say everybody. So when the strippers decide that they need a rifle,
that's the thing that people say. Well, about here's like the percentage of people that have a gun versus regular citizens. But I mean, so the super user is going to say that, well, this is what I'm using. If you need one, here, I'll give you this one and this one.
I'll give you. I may have a couple extra.
Try to bring it back later.
Yeah, if you could bring it back, yeah. And so, Caltech just. It's an interesting article. So in News Nation, Caltech just sent over $200,000 worth of rifles. And so the order had been ordered from them with the destination to be the Ukraine. So they had a customer in the Ukraine. They started to do the paperwork to ship these guns to the Ukraine. And so what happens is that it takes the U.S. government quite a while to approve the shipping of something. They have to decide if the country it's going to is worthy, if the people who it's going to within the country are worthy, all of that kind of stuff. And so the client lived in Odessa of the Ukraine, and that city currently is under siege from the Russian invasion. So Caltech looked at it and said, we may or may not have a customer. We've already built these guns. I believe that given my interview that I did recently with another gun company, that they take a deposit that kind of offsets their stuff, that at least covers their materials and their labor, but that type of thing. So they're not completely altruistic, but Caltech completed the shipment and just changed the customer. And they said that instead of the 4 months that it just took them like a couple days to be able to reroute it. So from the 4 months that the original order took to clear the U.S. and Ukrainian governments, it took 4 days to reroute the item. It's headed to a NATO country before it's being taken into the Ukraine. So we don't know if they're going to get their final payment. We don't know, but at some point, Caltech, which is a company out of Florida, decided that they were going to complete the sale. It was made in goodwill to begin with.
Well, a lot of things are shipped to the country next door, so like Poland, and then brought across. But there too is now they have the added. If it goes to Poland, are they going to be able to get it back across the border to the other side, or is it tied up in red tape there too?
Well, and at least, but it's a whole lot better than sitting in Cocoa Beach, right? At least there's a chance that it can do something toward the original
It
customer.
shouldn't be like that. They should be able to reach under the bed, pull their rifle out, and
maybe they could reach under the bed and pull their rifle out. In this case, they just wanted to be a super user and reach under their bed and pull out 14. Something like that. Don't know, but it's also an export of something that I believe these are not just semi-autos. I think it's another level up on the NFA list. We'll just say. We'll be back right after this message.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to DavenportGuns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, KRMAradio.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Sefakul and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.IamTheTargetRadio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.IamTheTargetRadio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, so we are back, and I have to say that Tom Knighton from Bearing Arms, the more I read his stuff, the more I like this man. I find that I agree with him so absolutely so very much. So he wrote, on March 19th, he wrote a story about gun buyback programs. And here's his statement that is just, well, his sarcasm oozes out everywhere. But let me set the scene, and then I'll get to the statement that he said that just was like, okay, I'm so in that we're going to have him come on as a guest, because if you guys don't read his stuff, you need to be knowing who he is. So he says gun buybacks are annoying. For one thing, no one is buying back anything. They're buying guns so they can be destroyed. That's it. And there's these problems with the no questions asked policies that make it likely that some criminal will use such an event as an opportunity to dispose of weapons that can tie them to various crimes, or they can use that event, I'm editorializing now, to predetermine that they're going to do some crimes so that they can get the stockpile that they need to be able to turn into cash. And so one gun activist in the Hampton Roads Black Caucus of Virginia said it doesn't matter if gun buybacks are ineffective because they are just needed to show the community that they care enough to have a gun buyback, that they care enough to have a gun buyback. Here's Tom Knighton's comment. That is the stupidest BS I'm likely to have read today. Well done, Mr. Jones. I'm impressed. That is a level of stupid that I don't expect to see relatively early in any day. So, I mean, and he just goes on. But let's talk about gun buybacks. He's right. They're not buying back anything. They're using our money to buy something that probably belonged to a law-abiding person prior to it being
One of the things
taken.
is there's some laws against like being in the business and all that
And
stuff.
no questions asked
Right,
issues, right?
So these like churches and different civic groups and that are involved in these are actually more than likely breaking the law, but because
it's for a good cause, because it feels good, then it's just fine. It's not an issue. It needs to be an issue.
And then they get Sammy Davis Jr.'s gun and destroy it because it only has a value of $350.
I know. And that you're just going to get me mad again. You're going to get me all mad. When I had the conversation with the dude that runs the NRA's museum, and he said he knew, and he tried to get that gun too, and they told him no, they were destroying it. When a museum reaches out to you and says that it has historical value...
Historical, not hysterical.
I'm hysterical about the historical. I'm just saying. You
know, it's funny. We all see Sammy Davis Jr. He's singing Candyman, and he's doing different...
He's all happy and...
dance routines on the TV with Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis and all these
guys. The Rat
Pack.
If you haven't heard of the Rat Pack, that was the Rat Pack.
But in reality, he was one of the top gun handlers. He was a quick draw guy. He did a lot of different tricks with his single action Colt revolvers, and he was very skilled at what he did.
So when he's in a Western and he's doing gun, well, they make it look like he's dropping it or faking, all of this kind of inadvertent stuff. It's not inadvertent. He's doing it on purpose.
Well, that's what Jerry Lewis said when he was really good with the gun also. And he said the best way to be able to make it look like you're an oaf and not be good with the gun is to be really good with the gun. So he bought a couple of guns, and he said he stood for a couple hundred hours in the middle of the double bed practicing tricks.
Till he got it, because they don't bounce well. They kind of leave marks on the floor.
Right. But yeah, he said he stood for a couple of hundred hours in the middle of a double bed practicing.
Well, and he gets points for that, because how hard is it? I mean, once you get past being 12, how hard is it to actually stand on the bed? How hard is it on your ankles and doing that?
We were talking to the trick guy from Cimarron Arms for a long time ago, and he said when he was a kid, his dad gave him hooked him up with the guns and that, and he would stand in the front yard wearing a motorcycle helmet because the gun would come
invariably they would hit him in the head. So he says that the neighbors thought that he was just a tad touched, if you will, because there's that kid again, and he's standing in.
Right.
He said,
two guns at the same time, and when you're throwing them over your shoulder and that, they'd bounce off your head once in a while.
But he says that he lived in a warm climate, so he was generally wearing a tank top, shorts, and a motorcycle helmet. So that the neighbors were. I mean, just visualize. It paints a picture. It really paints a picture that you're like, okay, I know that kid.
You know, the funny part is it's like anything. Everybody says, I wish I could play a guitar like that, or I wish I could do these tricks on the bicycle or whatever. It's how much time do you want to put into it? I mean, that's the thing. Is when these guys talk about, well, I have hundreds of hours of doing these tricks or practicing over and over and over again. And it's like that's the same way when you listen to somebody who's really good on the guitar or whatever. He's got hundreds of hours of
he walks
that one
with
song.
It, he sleeps with it. He's everywhere he goes, that guitar goes with him. Speaking of guitars, I was reading a thing the other day about Willie Nelson and the fact that Willie Nelson's guitar, they take it and they keep trying to not tune it, adjust it, but take care of it, because he's so kind of abusive to it. But the guitar has a sound unlike any other guitar that is like it.
Well, some of it is the big hole he's worn in it that makes it sound like it does, and so they can't replace it even with another guitar of the same kind.
Well, even before that, he got the hole because he couldn't find another one that sounded like it. So he didn't have the rotation of a couple guitars to rotate through. His quality time was spent with that guitar. And I think that some gun people are like that too. It's that gun, not that model, that gun.
It's funny because Chuck Berry used to buy his guitar a seat on the airplane so that he was sure that it was there when he got there.
Nothing would
get lost with the luggage or nothing is.
Nothing bad happened wherever he. I was on an airplane once and there was somebody on the inside seat had bought the window seat for their cello. So it wasn't allowed to have the aisle. It had to have the window. But they had bought the window seat for their cello. So I could fully believe that.
if you got to have it at the other end, I mean...
We've all been there without our T-shirts. We'll be back right after this.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.IamTheTargetRadio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.IamTheTargetRadio.com for Rust is Bad.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit ProjectChildSafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Okay, so we are back. So Kansas has a pro-gun bill that is passing through their legislature. So
it doesn't really say, I mean, it doesn't seem like pro-gun to me. It seems like it's pro-common sense.
Well, most pro-guns are pro-common sense when you or
well,
me.
the thing is, I mean, the police always constantly complaining, we don't have money for training, we don't have money for equipment, we don't have money for this, that, and the other thing. And then they capture a bunch of stuff, and instead of reselling it to the highest bidder, they destroy it. They pay more money that they don't have.
They virtue signal, pay more money that they don't have to destroy it.
Right.
Yes.
So this bill is going to allow them to recirculate these guns that they confiscate over the years.
And then they go with an FFL, and then they sell them
back through to a licensed dealer and on a public auction type site, so that they get the highest money for it. And
well, it absolutely makes so much sense, as opposed to let's just destroy it because it makes us feel better, feel safer, feel good.
It's like we don't have money now, but it costs us how much per gun to have it incinerated or whatever.
Right, sawed and chopped.
And to make sure that it made it clear through the whole thing and somebody didn't pull it off on their own.
Right, so we had to hire security to stand with it the whole time. So we've got cops on overtime guarding the stuff that we could be selling to get money, but instead we're paying money to to have it chopped up, right?
It's like the never-ending story that the woman who swallowed the fly.
Yeah, exactly. It's how much money do you got? What can we have it all because we're going to spend it?
Now we hired a security guard. Now we got to hire somebody to pay him. Now we got to hire somebody to watch them to make sure that everybody's
so somebody's got to manage their schedule and their time and make sure that it's always accompanied by someone.
And going and going until they eventually lay off the security guard just because they have to cut back on the money that's been.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, hey, well, we're talking about police. Why don't you go into this one? That's an interesting...
Well, I had it bundled up here. Here's a Connecticut policeman who goes into the gun store and orders a 12-round magazine, which he's allowed to have. And then he takes a 10-round magazine off the shelf and takes it with him out the door. So he bought one and got one for free without paying.
Right.
That's
kind of a problem. It's called shoplifting, and so you're a police officer that is shoplifting.
So they caught him on the cameras. They said that they don't want him prosecuted. They just want him on a list that he's done a lot back into their store.
Their store.
So he's going to have to go to a different town apparently to buy his equipment and that now.
I like this. They call it, he went in with 10 items and came out with 11. A mistake that could reasonably be understood in the confusion of the presence of many items. Right? Yeah.
Right. Well, the magazine was valued at $54.
We'll just say it's not your stuff, dude.
Now he's going to spend more than $54 in gas getting to the next town over just to...
Right. Cop or no cop, if you've got light fingers,
well, then they're
going to catch you.
Here's San Francisco, an officer who was found guilty of an assault, because the DA's office withheld evidence to make it his fault instead of not his fault. So whose team are you on? Is some of
there was that police officer who worked for the 2 different police departments. And then he was involved in a shooting,
right,
and both of the police...
said that he wasn't our guy?
Right. Both of them disassociated themselves from him then, and now he's standing there as a man without a country, and there is no legal defense, there is no union support, there is no anything. So what happened to this, that they should be punishing bad police officers, and they should be taking care of good police officers. And then, but to take a good guy and hang him out to dry because his department says that, well, he worked for another department too.
Well, it costs money, and they don't want to spend their money defending whatever's going on there. So, it's no wonder to me that we struggle getting good men and women who want to be police officers with the way that they're treated. Right. Well, here's another one where a Philadelphia police officer was suspended, and they're going to take his job at the end of the 30-day suspension, it says. He says, with the intent that he will be fired after 30 days. He stopped a van for not stopping at a stoplight or something. Mm-hmm. He initiated a search of the van, and during the course of that search, he unzipped the bag and then found an illegal gun in it.
Right, but he wasn't allowed to search the van to begin with, and then he wasn't allowed to open the bag. Right. He said it was sticking out. It wasn't sticking out.
Right, so
it's definitely a legal search and seizure.
Right, it's funny because, and then there was another one that's that they talk about the some of the problem is the media. Is the problem with they use these catchphrases like gun control or...
Well, I don't know. I don't have that article. Is it here?
I don't know. You might have buried it. But anyhow, it's just funny.
There it is. I buried it. Right in the stack of stuff on his side of the desk, I buried it because I obviously took it away from him.
They just said that they use catchphrases like gun violence and stuff like this to turn the public opinion, mm-hmm. And so they say they become firmly entrenched in the media's lexicon with these different words, and you see it with Smart Gun and
there's so
high capacity magazines, and now Ghost Gun. And
right, there's so many of those things. Well, I told you guys before about I was watching the Cleveland station, the news station, and there was a guy overseas who had used his car as a battering ram, and he ran over a couple people, and then he got out and he used a machete and he hacked at a couple people, and then he pulled out a knife and then he knifed a couple people, and then he pulled out a gun and he shot somebody. So what do you think the news reporters were calling him?
Gunman.
He was the gunman. And I'm like, wait. Why don't we just call him trash or murderer or criminal or machete man or a knife-wielding guy or, there's so many terms, yet you pick the low-hanging fruit, easy one that does not define the majority of the crime.
If you look at all the news, whether it's print or they use these little soundbite headlines.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you read a headline that sounds really juicy? You get into it,
Stay tuned.
They don't mention anything about that headline in the whole article. It's like you're reading about some new hamburger, and all they tell you about is bananas. It's like, I don't want to know about bananas. I want to know
about the hamburger. There's so many of that where you're going through the whole article going, They have a picture that they're talking about, right? They show you the picture. I want to see that picture. And that picture's not in the story.
Picture of the Eiffel Tower, but then they talk about Kansas or something. It's like, what's going on?
Right. They don't even talk about Las Vegas where they have a miniature Eiffel Tower. They talk, yes. I'm with you. I am so with you.
But that's the thing is I think
the scary part is we are considered media, But
you're hearing, you see a lot of these articles are getting shorter and shorter and shorter because America's attention span is getting shorter and shorter and shorter.
600 words. If they can't do it in 600 words, then we owe.
I don't know if 600 words is 2 pages, but that's about as long as anybody's
600 words is 2 pages. That's just it's magic that way. It can't get more than that, or you're like, woo, that's really long. What do they want me to do? Actually read?
But the other thing is our public school system has got us reading at like 4th grade level too. So
there is so much of that. But then we were talking about this on Friday. The thing where they find a word and then they use that word.
Remember back in the day, it was gravitas. Everything on the news, on the TV news, was gravitas. I was so sick of that. I mean, I don't even know what it really is about anymore.
There's a few of them. Now it's oligarchy.
Right. It's kind of like when the radio back in the day would play your favorite song, and then pretty soon after 3 months you're burned out on it. It's like as soon as it comes on, you change the channel or turn it off because it's driving you crazy.
We'll just say there was a restaurant that was local to us while we were building our house, and there wasn't a lot of restaurants that had their time, that their hours were open, were convenient to us going to work and then working on the house and then eating something. So we overindulged at this restaurant over the course of a year. I mean, because we probably ate there 4 or 5 times a week just because it was convenient. That was 24 years ago, and I could give a noodle if I ever eat there again.
I'm sure they have a different cook by now.
24 years later, I would not know.
If the restaurant's still there, that's a good long span, though, for a restaurant to last that long.
It is still there, and it is chain. And so I don't frequent them anywhere in the country, this chain of restaurants, because of that. But it's the overuse of anything. It doesn't matter how good it is when you start. Pretty soon you are exceedingly
I'd had enough of that.
Of that type of a sandwich. Never.
I think that's that thing where your dad, when he said he caught you smoking cigarettes and makes you smoke the whole carton. I think that's how that works.
It probably would work that same way about a sub sandwich. We'll just say that they did nothing wrong, but I don't need it. So I'm the same way about some of these words. You can just take those words and dig in your dictionary and find new words instead of using the same word everybody else used.
Right, and what else you think you would?
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to DavenportGuns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Sefcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit ProjectChildSafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a Rangemaster certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Okay, so they tell you to make sure that if you are bear hunting, to use a caliber that is sufficient.
They always say use enough gun or bring enough gun.
Bring enough gun so that if it's you versus the bear, then you know that you can persevere. Well, this is a story. This is an article written by Dean Weingarten, and he's doing a whole series of going back in history on defensive bear shootings. And he's using the Freedom of Information Act to request information so that he's got the documentation that goes with it. And so he's going back in time on this one, and I think this is an extremely interesting article because there's these two bow hunters that were not hunting for bear. They were out elk hunting. So they were prepared to hunt elk, and they had their bows to do so. It just so happened that one of the hunters had a .38 special also on his person when they scared up. Well, it started with a bear, and then it turned into 2 bears, and then it turned into one very angry bear. And so the 2 hunters, as they scared the bear, the bears took off, and they took off toward them. So one of the hunters climbed up a tree, not knowing or thinking about the fact that the bears actually can climb a tree faster than you can climb a tree, because it doesn't matter. Your fingernails are not sharp and pointy enough to be able to.
That's where the bear lives, is in the tree.
Yeah, exactly. So the first one climbed the tree. The second one tried to climb the tree, but he slipped and fell and landed on his back, looking up in the air to see the larger of the 2 bears looming over him. So he brought his foot up to kick the bear, because there you go. He's got nothing, because he had jettisoned his bow in the attempt to climb the tree. So the bear then takes a big tasty bite of his right ankle, boot and all. And so this hunter is yelling at his friend to shoot the bear, shoot the bear. So the friend is in the tree. He's trying to get down from the tree with his .38 revolver. He fires 2 shots at the bear. It doesn't really stop. It turns, though. It doesn't stop biting it, but it turns, and it's going to come toward the guy with the gun. So he fires 1 more shot. So the funny part, not that it's funny, but the funny part is that they say that all the bullets entered the bear from the front. Yeah, that's because they were shooting directly into his open mouth as he was trying to eat them. And then it said, so they're going through this whole thing, and they're like, yeah, it's 3 shots, and 2 of the bullets were relatively undamaged, and one of the bullets looked like it had hit something that was a bone that stopped it. But this is definitely an area where how much gun do you need to get a bear? Whatever you've got with the amount.
The thing is, he didn't have the prime bear hunting equipment, but apparently the 3 shots were enough that it actually killed the bear and stopped them from eating the guy. So that was a good call, I guess. But yeah, if you're going in the bear country and there's a chance you're going to get ate by the bear, you might want to think about something in a magnum caliber,
something a little bigger than something a little bigger than your concealed carry gun, revolver. There, right?
Right. It's funny though, but yeah.
I would think that would be one of those stories that you're then going to tell for the rest of your life as you frame your boot that kept you from truly being critically injured. So the bear had bitten through the boot, but the boot had taken the majority of the damage.
The big thing is, depending on how big the bear was, it probably wouldn't have mattered because the bear could probably just crush right through the boot. So.
The pictures of the bear show that the bear is pretty not little, because there's a bear and there's a guy.
Well, it's just, if you think about it, your regular house dog can crunch up bones with his teeth, and a bear's got a lot more horsepower.
A whole lot more horsepower than that. Right. So, but if you're out someplace where there's bears, think about a bigger gun. This is that appropriate gun for the circumstances.
They sell pepper spray and little bells so you don't scare the bear or sneak up on the bear or something.
No. All you find is pepper-flavored little bells in their scat, right?
As you find is bear poop with bells and pepper smell.
Right. So, okay, so what else you got? What do we have? You got 2 minutes. What can you tell me in 2 minutes?
Well, there's a study that says that New York's plan to seize guns isn't going to work.
Imagine. You mean more gun control is probably not going to stop crime?
Right. New York City's mayor says that they're going to disrupt gun trafficking by seizing the guns and arresting the people that are doing the illegal gun trafficking.
Imagine.
They should have been doing that all along, I would think.
But then we end up with, as Justice Pat DeWine says, we end up with this whole bail reform. So, okay, the police catch them. It's a catch and release program, kind of like the fish that aren't big enough.
Right, and the police are actually detained longer than the criminal is because they got to do all the paperwork to tell how to happen.
It takes them a lot more time to be able to do yes.
So I think that's the thing. I think that we're getting to the point where America's timeout chair is about over. I think we're going to go back to paddling maybe, or something a little more harsher. But how much are we going to put up with? How long can you go before you say enough is enough?
I don't know. When you start to look at some of these cities and the fact that people are arming themselves all over the place because they're scared, they're concerned.
What you were saying about people arming themselves, and then the Ukrainian story earlier about that now they're handing out Kalashnikovs. A couple of years ago, Germany was having trouble with when all the immigrants were coming from North African countries. There, they were going over to Austria and that because you could buy guns in Austria, and they were buying guns and bringing them back home illegally. But it was the only way they could get their hands on them. So
I mean, the thing is that when your family's life is in jeopardy, the first thing that a lot of people look to is how can I protect them and what can I have and what tool is there, and a firearm is a logical tool.
The thing is, how comfortable were people back in the day that they allowed their rights to be eroded in the first place? What caused them to not care enough that it was all good?
Well, next week, we're going to have a gal on our show that was testifying about the fact she was a victim of violent crime. And so she's testifying about being able to have more gun rights in her state. And her state senator is like, well, don't be, I'm not that afraid. I'm not afraid to leave my house. If I were that afraid, I'd suggest that you just stay home. That's how comfortable we are in the fact that some of our elected officials are that deaf to what is happening in society.
But we also we elect them and we allow them to do this to us. So why is it that we, as a society, would just allow them to keep going over us? And
I think we're done. I think we're absolutely done allowing that to happen. And so people are being called out. People are being recalled. People are being... so it is not becoming the, oh, well, what can I do? It's, oh, well, I will do something and watch what I do. So you're going to see more pushback. You're going to see more citizens running for office that never, ever thought about running for office before, because they're going to step in and say that somebody has to do something, and darn it, I'm somebody. And I guess it's left to me, and I'm going to be the one who does it, as crazy as that sounds. So, hey, folks, I think maybe we all need T-shirts that say, darn it, I'm somebody.
Somebody.
We'll see you next week.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.